Hi, and welcome to Leading Teams in 2023 and Beyond. My name is Nancy Appleman-Vassell. I'm a CSP, which is a certified speaking professional, and I am the proud founder and CEO of APLS Group. We've been around for about 22 years plus. And I'm here to talk to you today about that whole notion of how do you lead teams in 2023 and beyond? Some people are right there in front of you. Some people are far away in another location. And sometimes you've got both. And how do you maintain and enhance the engagement so that people feel included and they feel like they're valued and that they want to contribute? Well, one of the things that we're going to talk about is we're going to do some opening exercises. And that's to have you start to think a little bit more about what you're currently doing and what you want to do differently. We're then going to talk about what does it mean to lead in 2023 and beyond. Have a couple of models for you to look at and some ways to think about things a little bit differently. And then what's really critical in all this is what we call the engagement essentials. What are those things that you can do on a day-to-day basis that will really help you keep your people engaged? And it doesn't take rocket science. It's just more of things that to incorporate as part of who you are and how you interact with others. And then, of course, one of our favorite things is always to do what we call the toolkit takeaways and a little wrap up. All that in less than 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me ask you, is this you? Full of a lot of things going on, juggling a lot of things at the same time? And if that's not you, maybe this is you. Again, needing to have more than the two arms that we have in order to do the things that we need to do. Well, the other thing that's going on is that we're living in this 8 to 12 second world is what I like to call it. But it's really more like 7.5 seconds. Because if I don't get you at hello, you're like already disengaged and thinking about something else. It hasn't helped that we're still in the midst of some kind of COVID activity that's going on, where one day you don't need to wear a mask and the next day you might need to wear a mask. And that so much has changed over the last 3 years. It's just almost about 3 years now. And so the other thing that's going on, of course, is that we all are very dependent on this thing called the phone. And as a result of it, if I'm not interested in what you're talking about, I'm immediately going to go to my phone and my phone's going to entertain me. Well, of course, this doesn't work for communication and engagement. Not at all. And how are we communicating? What's our intent? And based on what our intent is the outcome that we're going to get. So if I'm blowhorning, if I'm screaming at you and yelling at you, then what's going to happen to the person that's happening to is they're going to completely be frustrated, completely be disengaged. And we really don't want that. The other thing that we definitely don't want is we don't want to have an environment where, oh, another meeting. Oh, here we go. I'll never get that hour back. I'll never get that 90 minutes back. I'll never get that 30 minutes back. And what we don't want is to have a workforce that's completely uninterested in what's going on. What we really want is we want the human connection. I speak on this all the time. You can have the best technical skills in the entire world. But if you don't have the people skills, forget about it. You'll get the work done, but it'll be painful. And it'll be painful for everybody around you as well. I thought about this about 5 or 6 years ago. I was talking with a colleague of mine, and she was telling me how she uses the analogy of a car. The steering wheel, the doors, the locks, the engine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, cars are not my thing, but I love my home. And I feel very strongly that my home be as safe and secure and welcoming as possible. So the analogy is about you as a person, you as a leader, you as a peer, as an individual contributor, as a partner in your home. What kind of house are you building? So when I think about that, I think about things like the foundation of the house. Is it solid? Can I step on it? Can I walk around? Can I dance on it? What are those words that I'm using? And then I think about the sides of the house, the windows. Are the windows secure enough that if there's a hurricane or a blizzard or a tornado or something other earth-shattering thing happening, does the house fall apart or is it stay strong? That's the actions that we use. When I think about the roof, I think about habits. I think about character. I think about the design of that house because really how we behave, how we show up is really our destiny and how we're seen. So the thing for you is to think about, well, what kind of house am I building? What am I known for? What do people, when they think of me, what are they saying? That my words are one thing, but my actions are something else? Am I consistent in my behavior? Am I consistent in my habits? What's my character when people think of me? What do they think of? Something to think about. So let's talk about a couple of exercises here. I just want you to think for a moment, what's a word that you think of when you hear leading hybrid teams or leading teams in the 21st century or in 2023 and beyond? Take a moment to think about that. What do you hear? What are people saying? What do you say? Let's just take a moment to figure that out. One of the things that you might have written down is you might have written down the word difficult, or another word might have been exciting, or might have been challenging, might have been, I don't know how to do it. It could be anything in that range. I'm going to just share with you a couple of leadership quotes. This first one is, you manage things, you lead people. Very profound, by Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. And then here's another one. We think it's important for employees to have fun. It drives employee engagement. Unfortunately, Tony passed away, the CEO of Zappos. I think it's about 4 years ago now, where there was a fire in the house that he was in Connecticut. But he wrote a book about happiness. You know, he talked about how do you get employees engaged that they want to. I don't know about you, but I use Zappos, and no matter when I call or email or whatever I do, they come back in a very quick way and in a very like, it's my pleasure to serve you. Here's another one. Engaged employees are in the game for the sake of the game. They believe in the cause of the organization. What we have seen in sports with sports teams is that when people are really focused on what the vision is and the end result is, they're committed to not only do their part, but to help others as well. And then the only way to do great work is to love what you do. Steve Jobs, of course, you know, so profound with the introduction of the iPhone. I like to always say that, you know, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. To win in the marketplace, you must first win in the workplace. Doug Conant, CEO of Campbell Soup. Good, right? That's what we remember in terms of those commercials. And then engaged employees are psychological owners. They drive performance and innovation and move the organization forward. If you're not familiar with Gallup, Gallup does a lot of different reports, surveys to kind of see what's at the pulse of what's going on in the universe. So let's talk about this for just a moment. What makes leading others in today's virtual and hybrid environment hard or difficult? What do you think? Take a moment to jot that down. Maybe one of the things that you wrote down or you thought about is that what makes leading others challenging is that it's not a one size fits all. And people have different needs and different wants. Another thing is that you may have said, hey, you know what? I'm not really that proficient with technology. So if somebody's not right here in front of me, I'm having a hard time engaging. Or what else? It could be that I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the whole hybrid, virtual, in-person type of thing. Those are just some things to think about. And the impact, and it's really the last, 30 plus months, right? I think we're going on almost 36 now. But we have new patterns of behavior have been incorporated. Again, the way we did things is not the way we're doing things. It probably won't be the same way we're doing things in 2024. And then employees and associates are now demanding more flexibility. I've been seeing in the news recently that some companies have said, look, I need you to come back into the workplace. And people have moved to other places because they could work from anywhere. The customer and client expectations are growing. Our patience for it taking longer is not there. And that we are expecting, because we have been through it over the last 30 plus months, that we can continue doing it the same way. And we definitely need to transform the workplace to keep pace. There are articles all the time. Forbes magazine, definitely has stuff on LinkedIn all the time talking about, the workplace of today. I remember one of the first ones I read was about what's the role of the workplace in 2022 and beyond. And it was talking about how it was just for socialization. And that the hybrid experience is alive and that it's not dormant. And it's not going away. And then I love to say that the world is changing. It is a changing, right? And that how do we get the best of both worlds? So really, for us to be able to talk about this, we really need to talk about what is a hybrid team, which is a very clear, common word that's being used in the workplace now. So for the purposes of our discussion, here's a definition. A flexible work structure where some employees work at a different location and other team members work from a central location or an office. The structure allows employees to decide whether they prefer an office environment or working from anywhere remotely or a different location. One of the things that I heard quite a bit, even from my introverted friends, it's like, oh, I'd like to go into the office 1 or 2 days a week because I'm completely isolated. And because I started this workshop and webinar in 2022, here's some information that really talks to us about what's true in 2022 and beyond. Engagement is not an employee survey. There are company success factors that come into play. Creating that positive work environment and culture is a #1 priority where people feel engaged, they feel like they have a sense of belonging, that they're valued, and that it supports development and opportunities. There's a lot of focus now on career development within an organization. And it requires that there's a high level of engagement from senior leaders. Like, it's no more that senior leaders are in the ivory tower. It's now that they are absolutely rolling up their sleeves and engaging. And then the other is that leaders will instill pride and engender a growth mindset, so that that's part of what the culture is in the organization. And employees are now more connected to the business, its performance, and its leadership when that company is providing what the vision is providing career opportunities, is keeping people in the know, as opposed to like acting as if, I always like to say, you hire the best and the brightest. They don't get stupid when they walk in the door. They're aware when things are happening or things are different. and that employees join companies and they leave managers. And that engaged employees take an average of 2.69 days of sick leave per year, whereas disengaged employees take an average of 6.19 days of sick leave per year. So then what you have is people that are just quiet quitters, is the term that's being used now, or they're people that have resigned, but they're still there. Another way to look at it is 26% are fully engaged in an organization, 56 are not engaged, and 18% are actively disengaged. And what that does is it's basically telling you that only a quarter, 26%, a little bit over a quarter, are really engaged in doing all the work, and that the rest of the folks, which is 74%, are just like, I'm here, I'm doing whatever is required, I'm not going to do anything more than what is required. And here's interesting. So of course, I live here in North Carolina in the US, and outside of Raleigh. And so for 10 best places to work in North Carolina is Microsoft, Duke University, SAS Institute, North Carolina State University, go Wolfpack, Merck Pharmaceuticals, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, Wake Med, which is a big hospital system here in North Carolina, IBM, which, 3 years ago or 4 years ago now bought Red Hat, which is of course the enterprise software company that is the alternative and free, and then the Duke University Health System, and also Cisco Systems. So I want you to think for a moment, think about your own organization. Where would you put them on a scale? The song like What About Us, which is the Pink song. It's like, what about us? Are you on the low end or the high end? If you were to say, where's my company as a whole? Where's the company organization? And what about my department? Where would that be ranked on a scale of 1 to 5? Take a moment to do that. Something to think about. Where are you? And this is a kind of scale that you can utilize every, let's say, month or so, and just doing like what we call the pulse check. I always say to people, if I knew how to take my pulse, I would be taking my pulse, but instead I use technology to help me because I can't figure it out. So take a pulse every couple of months. So here are 5 ways to engage a hybrid team. One is to set expectations, because this is a new situation for everyone. The old days, way back before any of us were born, was cheeks in the seat. That's it. Unless you're sitting in the seat, I don't think you're working. Now, what we've learned from the pandemic is that people could get the work done and actually get about 25% more done, even though there might be some distractions of animals or people or kids or different things like that, or finding a spot in the house that best works for that. So it's a new situation for everyone. Create a meeting experience. So when you are actually either on a Zoom or Teams or Adobe or any of the other platforms that are out there, Blue Jeans, etc., is that creating an experience that people want to be part of the meeting. What we've been doing at APLS Group is we have a segment, which is like the icebreaker. And we do that for some type of activity for 10 minutes that kind of gets everybody in for the monthly meeting. And then we do whatever the agenda is, but that we always have that, and it's always different. Like the last time was about trivia, and the time before that was, what was the first concert you ever went to? Because it allows people to get connected as a community. And then be flexible with work hours. It's not like this mentality of it's 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. It's all about getting the results. And maybe I can get the results better at night than I can do it during the day. Or the need to collaborate differently. If we're on different time zones, okay. So maybe first one time I'm doing it at my preferred time, and the next time I'm doing it at your preferred time, because it's all about collaboration. And then as the leader, sit back and relax, because it will form itself the way that it needs to. And here are some things to talk about for just a few minutes about essentials. The formula is 90% of its people, 10% is the task. What do I mean by that? The task is going to get done. But if you don't engage the people, if people don't feel like they're part of it, and you as a leader, 90% of what you do is engaging with your team, individually and collectively. And we have what we call the presenter formula. So you as a leader need to be presenting in a way that people are going to hear it. So we call it the 7 is the words, 38% is your voice and your tone and so forth and your inflection, and then 55% is your body language. Another way to look at it. There's all this stuff about verbal and nonverbal. Things like articulation, inflection, pace, pitch, tone, word choice is extremely important. And how loud I am. What's my volume? Is it too high? Is it too low? Is it too soft? Is it too strong? Or is it just right? It's kind of like the porridge thing. And then am I looking at you, or am I looking up? Am I looking down? Am I looking to the side? What am I doing? And then posture. Posture is extremely important. As someone who grew up and was about a foot taller than anybody else, I did a lot of this. And I've learned over the last 4 years in particular, doing Pilates, about the importance of my posture. And then facial features or expressions, excuse me. You know, you can tell the whole story about me with my face. If I'm not in a good mood, you really know it. And then space is really about giving the other person a chance to hear what it is that you're asking, or to share, for them to be able to share something as well. And then another thing I just want to share with you is about feedback. You know, feedback gets a bad rap, because as soon as you hear the word, you think, oh, let me brace myself. I'm going to find out what I haven't done well. And I come from the thought process of, there are things that I value and appreciate that I want you to continue doing. And there are things that you're doing that are getting in the way. You'll notice I never said constructive criticism. I never said, constructive feedback. It's really about an exchange and a dialogue. And there's a model out there called the SBI model, which is situation, behavior, and impact, which allows you to then share that feedback that you need to continue to engage your the person or persons that are working with you in a way that they know that they're always going to get feedback, that there's going to be an ongoing dialogue. And then there's what we call the best practice in listening, which is all about, there's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We're supposed to listen more than we talk. And that the best practice in listening is what we call global listening, which is beyond the words. It's also the affect as well. And here's just some quick tips as we round out the session here is the right tools to work. You need the right infrastructure so that people have what they need in order to be successful. Provide training for continuous growth. To be able to do recognition and appreciating the employees for the good work and the accomplishments that they're doing. And then introduce the notion of open communication and transparency. Like there are no secrets, that we are working together and that you know exactly what's going on. And then to ensure that employees get off to a good start. So when you're onboarding them, making sure that you just don't throw them in, and that they have a chance to learn about the organization, and making sure that you address those workplace issues when they arise. Also, for tips for increasing engagement, so let your employees be aware of the changing company goals. Like I said, you hire the best and the brightest. They don't get stupid when they walk in the door. They know when something is going on. and take pulse check surveys, as I mentioned, earlier, to do pulse checks, and treat people like human beings, not human resources. And invite ideas. You want to expand the thinking. You just don't want it to be just totally what you think. And as a leader, you want to be trustworthy and accessible. So because we are doing this as a webinar, I just would like you to think about which of these engagement keys resonate with you. What are you using that's effective? And what's the biggest concern that you have about the hybrid team concept? So take a moment to think about that. Which of these engagement keys resonate with you? What are you using that's effective? And then what is your biggest concern about the hybrid team concept? Again, something to think about. And just to get us to round this up, we do what we love to call the true and false quiz. So here we go. Involving employees on decisions that affect their work. Make sure you involve them, yes or no, true or false. You're right, it is true. Here's another one. 74% of employees are disengaged. Is that true or is it false? It's absolutely true. And then the choice of words that I use is not important. Is that true or false? You're right, it's false. And then show employees appreciation by saying great job. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false? It's false. Because when you just use a term, great job, great job, people don't know what they did. And it feels like that's just an automatic pilot. And one form of engaging employees is to be trustworthy. True or false? You're right, it's true. And people join companies and leave managers. Is that true or is that false? You're right, it's true. And follow-up sometimes when time allows. Is that true or is that false? The answer is false. You got it. And I now have the tools needed to engage the employees in my area. True or false? One hopes that it's true. And here's your last one. I am more comfortable now about engaging teams in 2023 and beyond. Hopefully your answer is true. Thanks so much for being part of the webinar today. Really appreciate your participation. If you would like to learn some more information about our organization, just use that QR code. We have a link tree that can give you lots of other different pieces of information. And I hope that what you've learned today will help you be more effective as a leader. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful rest of the day and week.